Hey everybody, Jordan here, and today we are going to continue our little series we're going on here by addressing the idea of chi directly. So in the video before that I spoke about thought, and in the video before that one I spoke about Kundalini. So hopefully we might be able to bring these sorts of concepts together into a nice cohesive group, and that is the aim of today's video. It might be a little difficult, but I'm going to give it my best shot. But yes, let's jump right into it. But before we begin, thank you for watching so far. I really I really appreciate the kind words that everyone's been given. It's been really nice, and I'm really enjoying making these sorts of videos that have a bit more of a, it feels a bit more intimate to be able to sort of talk as me, rather than typing and writing things on the Reddit. And for those who are not aware of the Reddit, I'll link it in the description. But yeah, that's pretty much the introduction out of the way. Why don't we jump right into the video? So I've got my notes up here. So yes, we're going to be essentially focusing on the idea of chi today, because chi is very important when it comes to learning all of these sorts of things. And the chi system is a Chinese system, but in Tibet and India they use the system of prana. So the language is different, but the concepts are essentially the same, although some teachings may differ. But chi is a good way to sort of get an understanding of what's happening in the body and around you. But there's many different sorts of systems that have arisen. I think raw material sort of gave their own take on it as well. They used ideas such as intelligent energy and densities, and I will definitely be trying to incorporate those things into this idea of chi. But for now, we're just going to sort of focus on getting an idea of how the physical body relates or builds a relationship with chi, and what chi is in relationship with the physical body. Although I'm sure in the previous videos on thought and Kundalini, I may have already said certain things that are giving an idea of that. But basically, these videos just aim to build on that. Okay, so let's start with Kundalini again. So we're just going to jump right back to Kundalini, and I wanted to remind you that Kundalini is actually made of chi, and chi is universal energy. So universal energy just means to translate to an energy that responds to intelligence and that is omnipresent throughout the universe. It's the primordial energy. It's the energy that atoms and physicality derive from. And I'll definitely do a video on how I've been taught that atoms are made, in case that is of an interest to people. So yeah, chi is universal energy, and the universal energy that is, or rather, Kundalini, is what happens if you take a large amount of this universal energy and you split it between 2 points, the lower self and the higher self. So the lower self contains a large amount of chi, and the higher self contains an even greater amount of chi, and they're split between 2 points. And the spinal cord, in a metaphysical sense, is a cord that connects the lower self to the higher self. And when that connection is made and the chi is able to move from the lower self to the higher self, you experience enlightenment. But there's always a flow of current of chi from the lower self to the higher self, always. And this current doesn't just go up and down, it spreads throughout the entire body to every single cell. Every single cell is full of chi, and that chi is being supplied by the Kundalini. So with that, then we come to the idea of thought. So I'm just kind of going through the videos in order. So thought is what moves chi, or what brings order to chi. It brings order to chi. Thought is the creative force, and the nature of thought is actually focus. So focus essentially is to, when you put your focus on a point, you are building chi in that area. And if you design the focus in a certain way, giving it a certain shape and a certain form, then you can make the focus more precise, depending on what you want to do. But focus or thought basically controls the way chi works. And there's a saying Chinese dialect, or sorry, Chinese texts, which is where attention goes, chi flows, and where chi flows, the body follows. So what that means is the loose electrical currents in the body, which is what Jay calls lower chi, will flow, and that will also mean that the blood flow will increase in certain areas of the body. Lots of things actually change, but I'm sure we can talk about that in more detail. So yeah, let's jump into chi now. I hope that was all sort of clear. So the two chis, there's two chis in my system of understanding, which may differ from the original understandings. There's higher chi and lower chi. Higher chi is non-physical and lower chi is physical. Higher chi is a non-physical electricity, but it fundamentally it is still electricity. It's just an electricity that is so sort of fundamental or so fine or refined that it doesn't exist in our physical world. And then there is lower chi, which is physical chi or physical electricity. It's the electricity that flows through copper wires. It is the electrical fields as well. Although sometimes electrical fields can have a non-physical constituent to them, but it is like physical electrical fields. Another way to understand higher chi and lower chi is to think of the higher chi to be the portion of an atom that is 99.9% empty space, and to think of lower chi as the portion of the atom that is not the 99.9% empty space. But higher chi and lower chi are always kind of tithering and hithering. That means they're always sort of coming in and out of existence between each other. There's always an exchange of energy to matter and matter to energy. But it will always remain as electricity. And it's the higher chi that is delivered by the Kundalini that actually energizes cells with non-physical energy. It's the primordial aspect of a cell that brings that cell energy and life force. That higher chi will then bring order and instruction to the physical portions of the cell, causing the physical electricity, the lower chi of the cell, to change and reform, directing DNA and giving instruction to the molecules that compose cells, like proteins and things like that, so they know what to do in such a way, as I have explained maybe once before, a seed can become a tree and an egg can become a chicken, or an egg can become a human. And then we come to chi manipulation. So of course chi responds to thought and focus, and it's important to sort of understand, okay, so if chi responds to thought and focus, and we are able to give chi more precise instructions depending on the thought or the nature of the focus we are applying, how will that relate to the body? How does chi travel through the body? And this is sort of nice to sort of understand, because it can relieve some confusion, because when we practice any form of qigong or any kind of technique that is basically the manipulation of chi, we sort of have to understand that, like, what are the signs that we're looking for that we're doing it right. So when someone becomes really, really good at manipulating the chi force, the first thing they notice is that the chi force follows the nervous system. So I don't know if anyone's ever seen a picture of their nervous system on what do you call it, on the internet. They have the pictures and the abstracts of what the nervous system should look like. I think someone even managed to dissect the nervous system out of the human body, if I recall a picture about that. But chi basically non-physical chi, higher chi, will follow or swirl around the nervous system, and physical chi will follow the nervous system as loose electrical currents. That means electrical currents that are not directly attached to the nervous system. So the nervous system the way the nervous system works is it does this thing where it depolarizes and then it sort of repolarizes. This process of depolarizing and repolarizing does not create an electric current. It's more as though there's electrons here and there's a positive charge, a negative charge here and a positive charge here, and then they swap like that. So that isn't really an electrical current. That's more of an electrical oscillation, and that is how basically nerves communicate with each other. They go like that, like that. That is not the chi. The chi is actually the looser electrical currents in the physical world. That's lower chi. The lower chi is loose electrical currents that sit near and around the nervous system, that are very subtle and very fine, but still nonetheless physical, that travel around the nervous system. And the higher chi, the non-physical chi, is a very energy dense force which also swirls and travels with the nervous system. But the chi force itself technically is not the nerves themselves. Sorry, but at the same time, when we are using or manipulating chi, our nerves will respond. There will be a change in how the nervous system is functioning. You might get more activity in the nerves, say when you are manipulating chi in the hand, meaning that, say, the nerves that are responsible for sensory input and nerves that are responsible for muscular contraction, these nerves may become a lot more active when we are moving chi up and down the physical body. During an orgasm, if you're interested, there's a flow of chi, and the nervous system too responds to that flow as you experience the climax. So there's always an interrelationship between these things. It's just that the nervous system itself is not necessarily the constituent that is causing a flow of chi. Lower chi always will follow loosely the nervous system as loose electrical currents, and higher chi swirls is a very highly dense energy that swirls around the nervous system. And if you have learned how to manipulate the chi force, you will feel that. Yes, so that's kind of like how it sort of follows through your body, and so what you can expect to feel when you're manipulating chi correctly is you would expect to feel a flow of electricity that feels like it's following your nervous system. Yeah. And also, when you're practicing manipulation of chi, you're also going to feel that the chi is coming from the lower abdomen. So you'll feel the chi at the lower portions of the body, and you'll feel it rising through your body, and you'll feel this fire, this heat, and you'll feel it traveling through your nervous system. And it does depend on what you're doing, though, because sometimes, depending on the way we manipulate chi, will sort of depend on whether we feel that heat or not. Sometimes when we're manipulating chi, it feels cold, and that's another topic for another day. But it really sort of depends on how we're sort of working with this force. So moving on to the abdomen, chi stores in the lower abdomen in the greatest amount, but chi is everywhere. It's just that it has a tendency of storing in the lower abdomen, and that's sort of how we've understood the coiled serpent. The coiled serpent is an incredible storage of chi that is sitting at the lower abdomen of the body, and if you can actually learn how to feel this chi by learning how to focus on it, which you might want to sort of mess around with and practice if you're ever interested. But chi stores in the lower abdomen, and that is our Kundalini. And that's where the great amount of storage is. But chi also stores inside of cells, so it's not restricted to that. It's just that in the greatest amounts it stores in the lower abdomen. And chi is most active in the central nervous system, meaning the spine, and the hindbrain, the midbrain, the forebrain, and the cerebral cortex. So these portions of our brain and spine are delivering chi in the greatest amounts. There's always electrical currents, or there's always non-physical energy traveling in the greatest amounts up and down the spine. Usually the amount of chi we would have in our hands at any given time in comparison is nowhere near. But if you did, say, have 10% more chi in your hands than you did right now, your hands would be very hot. So that's just to give you an idea of sort of what would it be like if chi was more lineated toward different portions of our body. But yeah, and then with certain practice, another thing is with certain practices, then we do learn how to release chi from the lower abdomen, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to speak about that in a lot more detail. So these will definitely be for later videos. I'm just trying to get these basics out of the way so that we all have a sort of firm idea of the systems that are going on, so that, say, when I'm doing a video on how to manipulate the chi, you're not getting lost in all the words, or you're not getting confused by why I'm saying chi so much or things like that, right? So I just want to get these sorts of things out of the way. The final topic for today's video, because I mean it's quite a short video, I guess, is chi and the soul. So this is more like it's like an abstract topic, so that we can sort of understand, where did this stuff come from, why do we have it, why is it like this, that kind of stuff. And in order to understand this, we actually have to understand that chi, as a universal energy, is the energy that our soul is composed of. Our soul is composed of non-physical electricity. It is, and our soul is, it's a strange thing, I guess, because our soul is like, the soul that is currently in the body, your soul that's in your body right now, is such a tiny amount of your real soul. I think in the first video I made, I sort of stated that if you put more of your real soul into your physical body, it could cause massive problems. We're talking about spontaneous combustion, even things that are worse than that, severe neurological damage. Basically, the amount of energy or the amount of soul in the physical body at any given time is extremely small. When you leave this planet, when you sadly pass over, what will happen is all of the energy that is basically not in the physical world right now will all sort of begin to come back to you, and you will start to feel as though you feel sort of euphoric, or there's an extreme sensation of energy. And anybody who has had an out-of-body experience will know what this feeling is. This exhilarating feeling of feeling like you're made of energy. And that's your real soul. And again, when we come to this planet, we only incarnate a small amount of that into the physical body. And it's that small amount of that we incarnate into the physical body. Even a great majority of that small amount of energy still has to be stifled. So it is stored as the coiled serpent. It's stored as the Kundalini. So we're just dividing and dividing. And again, the reason why is because the soul has so much power that unless you divide it and divide it and divide it more and more, it can quickly cause a lot of neurological trouble for the body and a lot of physiological problems for the body that would make living inside of this physical body hell on earth. And there are symptoms of having too much soul or too much Kundalini active in the body, and it's called burning man syndrome. I suggest you research it. It's a horrible symptom which causes the nervous system to randomly burn. There's also a whole host of other issues. Schizophrenia tends to be a problem with incorrect flow of Kundalini. And there's a variety of other things that like that as well. For instance, split personality disorder is another aspect of incorrect electrical currents happening inside of the body due to the way the soul has connected with the body. And even some disabilities that people experience are caused by this. People who incarnate into the body and they are savant, that they're extremely gifted, it's usually because the soul has decided to more so house the higher regions and centers of the central nervous system in the brain, rather than housing or occupying the lower centers of the nervous system in the brain. Meaning that rather than fully occupying the motor cortex, for instance, the soul will take a greater presence in the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system, meaning that the person has super memory and has the ability to think at incredible levels, giving them a marvelous IQ, but they sacrifice motor ability, the ability to move coherently, the ability to use muscles correctly. So essentially what I'm saying here is that the soul is where all of your chi is stored, and the real soul, that's all of your chi. A small amount of that soul comes or incarnates into the physical body, and even when that small amount of your soul incarnates into the physical body, it's even squashed. It's squashed even more into an enormous coiled amount of energy that's sitting in your abdomen, especially. but it's obviously spread throughout the body. And that, yes, some people who have various sort of gifts or talents and such things, this is because of the way that their Kundalini or their soul is naturally awakened through their body. And this is really important to know because it gives us a better idea of where all of this energy comes from. Why, for instance, are certain beings who have practiced meditation for this amount of time, why are they able to not eat any food? Well, it's actually because they have released the fire, or rather the Kundalini within them. They've uncoiled the energy of their soul. They have released the non-physical electricity, and they're literally living off that. And why is it that, once again, I mentioned this in the previous video, why is it that people can walk on water? Why is it that people can move objects? Where is all of this power coming from? Once again, it's coming from where we originate from, which is the non-physical electrical planes. And I think it's also really important to understand that this is all about electricity. A famous quote in Tibet is, everything is vibration and electricity is vibration. So vibration and electricity are both one and the same thing. And then the other quote is, in Tibet, it's something along the lines of, there is an infinite piano scale of vibration, which translates to there's an infinite piano scale of electricity, which means there's the crude electricity that we experience in the physical world, and there's also extremely refined and fast-moving electricity that exists in non-physical worlds. And this electricity can move so fast that it kind of occupies space omnipresently. It's like an ether that's just everywhere at once. And we're going to be doing lots of videos on things like that soon as well. So, if you have any sort of questions or interest, just, let me know, and maybe I can answer them in the comment section. But otherwise, we basically, ironically, covered the basics. These are the first 3 videos that will serve as the foundation for all of the videos to come. And in the next many videos, we're going to be sort of learning how to use these ideas to control the chi in our body, and how we can change or produce physiological changes in the body as well. I want to be able to teach you things that I've learned, and I want to share with you experiences that I have had, and we'll see where it goes from there. So yeah, I hope this video was informative. I hope it was somewhat enjoyable, and have a wonderful day. Okay, bye bye.